This was an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. In this moment, we must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. There's no justification for terrorism. There's no excuse.
President Biden addresses the nation on this fourth day of war in Israel, a conflict in which he says Israel has a right to respond to Hamas. Israeli officials say at least 1,800 people have been killed since Hamas launched the attack. The White House confirms 14 U.S. citizens are among the dead. Right now, Israel Defense Forces are on an all-out military response on the Gaza Strip, displacing more than 100,000 people. IDF says more than 1,000 people have died in Israel and 830 have died in Gaza. The president is now ordering the movement of a U.S. carrier strike group to the eastern Mediterranean to deter other nations or groups from exploiting the situation.
News 8's government reporter Garrett Bergquist talked to Indiana congressmen right after the president finished speaking. Garrett, what do they have to say?
Members I talked to say Congress is ready to provide whatever help Israel needs, but Republicans say Hamas isn't the only threat here. Congressional Republicans from the beginning have blamed Iran for helping to orchestrate the attacks. Hamas has long been linked to Iran, though that country's leaders deny involvement in the latest violence.
He didn't mention at all Iran's involvement in what's going on in southern Israel. We know that Hamas is a proxy group of the Iranian government. President Biden just released $6 billion to the Iranians just a couple of weeks ago. President Joe Biden says the United States already is transferring munitions to Israel, and he's added something to Congress's to-do list.
When Congress returns, we're going to ask them to take urgent action to fund the national security requirements of our critical partners.
That's almost certain to include more interceptors for Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. Congressman Jim Baird, who serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, agrees with that assessment.
I think Hamas's goal was to overwhelm the Iron Dome. And so we need to make sure that Israel has the capability to replenish those munitions.
Baird says any supplemental aid for Israel probably will be part of a larger spending bill. He says Congress will have to balance Israel's needs against those of other nations seeking U.S. assistance, including Ukraine. Banks says he'd rather see a standalone aid package for Israel.
It shouldn't be hijacked by some other political cause, whatever that might be. It should be a standalone bill debated on its own to provide more support for the Iron Dome and security in Israel, because Israel is such an important ally.
No aid for Israel can get a floor vote in the House until the House gets a new speaker. House Republicans will hold a forum with speaker candidates tonight. Baird and Banks both told me they expect a speaker election as early as tomorrow morning. I'm Garrett Bergquist for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and like us on Facebook.
Garrett, thank you. The level of violence that precipitated this newest chapter of the Palestinian and Israeli conflict is unprecedented.
A professor researching Middle Eastern politics tells News 8's multicultural reporter Katira Winfrey Palestinians and Israelis will feel its impact for a long time.
The devastation the Palestinian militant group Hamas has left on Israel and the region is expected to stretch even further. It's a conflict senior lecturer of the O'Neill School of Public and Environmental Affairs at IUND, Pierre Atlas, has been following for years.
And the fact that Hamas fighters actually went into Israeli towns and took hostages and dragged them across Gaza, the fact that they went in and massacred 260 kids at an open-air concert, and took a bunch of them hostage. This has never happened before.
Seeing peaks and valleys of peace and violence, the roots of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict go back about a century, as both groups are indigenous to the Holy Land, divided on land by what's considered the Gaza Strip.
Israel has been controlling the West Bank since 1967, and they've been sharing control with Palestinians there. But Hamas is different. Hamas is a Islamist group. It wants to turn every inch, what they say, every inch of Palestine, including Israel, into an Islamic state.
To put into perspective, Atlas says Hamas and Palestinians is similar to the Taliban and Afghans in terms of the rigid view of Islamic theology, adding that most Palestinians don't see the world as they do. He says using Gaza as a launching pad for attacks is in essence holding Palestinian people hostage by Hamas in Gaza, while also facing a Gaza blockade by Israel.
They're promising execution videos. They're promising now to execute the hostages that they've taken. And they're promising to put out videos the way ISIS did. They're a very bad actor. They don't represent the majority of Palestinians.
Comparing this level of violence to what Americans saw with 9/11, he says this attack will likely be answered with an even harder blow, as Israel has called up 300,000 civilian soldiers and declared war.
Professor Atlas says there are Americans with dual citizenship on both sides, so that may cause some problems as far as what the international implications will be. It's not clear, but he says countries will start picking sides. Reporting in Indianapolis, Katira Winfrey, Wish TV, WishTV.com, and like us on Facebook.
There is an event this Thursday on Monument Circle in support of Palestine. It's being hosted by Showing Up for Racial Justice and other advocacy groups. Organizers are calling it a day of resistance. It's set to start at 5:30 on Thursday evening.
The International Red Cross says it needs donations to help the victims in Israel and the Gaza Strip. Just scan the QR code on your screen to help. That will take you to the As Seen On section of our website where you can find a link to donate.